So the first thing we're going to get started with is our ground wire. So uh, we will take the ground wire and we're going to plug it into ground on the board. And if you've watched you should have watched the video on the different like the layout of this Arduino board, and I highlight and identify where ground is, and you have a couple options here. You notice that ground is here. You also notice on this side, you'll see that it also shows you ground as well. So I'm going to use the third pin up. So it's ground. G and D is the abbreviation. And I'm also going to run my ground over to, this is our power bus channel here. We have a positive and negative line. And remember, they're connected, all these pins are connected in a column together. So it doesn't really matter where I plug this in at. I just need to make sure that I'm in the negative, I'm on the negative channel of this power bus. And in this case, I could plug it in, I'll plug it in this first pin, second pin here. Okay. All right, next I'm going to need is the red wire. And so for the red wire, I am going to go into the 5 volts, the 5 volts out, and that is the fourth pin up. And this time we're going to go to our power bus. When we go to our power bus, I'm going to go to the positive channel. Okay, and positive, you'll see the red plus up here. It's the one on the left, and I can go into pin 1. Okay, so I have, when I supply power to the Arduino board, the Arduino board 5 volts will come out of this pin and go into this circuit and go to our breadboard here. Okay. All right, so the next thing that I want is my 220 ohm resistor, and resistors do not have polarity, so it's not going to matter which way we plug this in, but I want to connect to the positive side. Okay, I want to come from the 5 volts, so make sure that one of your legs for your resistor is you are plugged in on this positive channel here. Remember, all these pins are connected as a column, up and down. And so you want to make sure one leg is in the positive column here. And then I'm going to go, it doesn't matter which row I go in, but just so I'm not, bending the resistor too bad out of shape, it naturally fits pretty good in row 5, and I'm in column A. Okay, so all these rows over here, like all of these rows are connected electrically. So there's a metal strip on the back of each row that no matter which pin I connect to or plug in into row 5, they're all connected here. So resistor, one leg in the positive channel, and then the other leg in row 5, column A. All right. Now I'm going to take a switch, my push button switch, and the way these switches as I explained in the video on switches, that these are, like, if you look at the switches where the legs are connected to each other, or excuse me, you have 2 legs on each side. The legs are connected this way. Okay, so there's a metal strip that runs this direction, connecting these 2 legs together. These legs aren't connected as long as the switch is not pushed in. Once I push them in, then it provides connection. So you want to take it and orient your switch like this. And I'll take, I'm in row 5, and I'll go in pin in column E. And so you'll notice just naturally, if you're in row 5, one leg in row 5, the other leg will fit in row 7. All right. Now you want the 2 legs on this side. It's going to be on the other side of this gap. This break here, this middle section, separates the breadboard in 2 pieces. So there's no connectivity over here. When we push down on the breadboard, what's going to happen is it's going to allow the circuit to be closed, to be complete. And so current will flow through the switch and then on to whatever else we have connected. So next, we'll use, it doesn't matter which jumper wire you use, but I got to take a jumper wire and I'm going to go in row 7. Doesn't matter which pin in row 7, but I'm using C. And then naturally the other leg will fit into, well, for the length of my jumper cable, it's going in row 11. But whatever, depending on the size of your jumper cable, yours may fall naturally in 10. If you have a longer one, it may be down here 13, 14. But just as long as you make sure that one of the legs is in the same row as your switch, as a leg of your switch here. All right. Next is the component LED, light emitting diode. And if you'll notice, like these LEDs come where one leg is longer than the other. Okay, so the longer leg is the anode and the shorter leg is the cathode, and the longer leg always gets plugged into the positive side, and the shorter leg always plugs into the negative side. So in other words, this has polarity on it. So it's very important the direction that you orient this in your circuit. So remember, we started with 5 volts. It's flowing through the resistor. When we push on the button here, it'll flow through the switch, through the jumper cable. And so that's where we want our, that's the first leg. Like we want our first leg to receive this power here. So I'm going to take the anode side and plug it in row 11, column D. So that way it's coming from this jumper into the anode first. Okay. If you also notice, one thing I want to point out is on the cathode side, the shorter leg side, you notice that the LED is kind of flat too. So that's another way to identify it. And you can also identify it by looking through it. It's like a little flag shape. Point out real quick. You can see it's like a little flag shape here, and so this flag is the cathode side. It usually go down to the shorter pin. All right. Then last, I want to take my jumper cable, my second jumper cable. This is why it's good to have pliers. And I want to plug it, because I'm going to take this is my cathode, the negative side of my LED, and it's going to go to the negative, to ground, actually. Okay. And I'm in row 12 because the cathode side of my LED is in row 12, and I'm in column A. And the other part of my jumper wire is in the negative side of my power bus channel. Okay, so notice right now I do not have any power going to this. You probably have seen me, like, as I'm adding components and using these metal pliers here to move around. You definitely don't want to have power going to this. So it's anytime you're adding or removing components, make sure you unplug any power going to the board. Okay, so now we have our circuit all built up, and before we actually supply power, I want to in the next video we're going to cover the schematic of this circuit that we have here, so you can see how the two relate to each other.